I dressed like this? Is it because I've spent too much time inside? Perhaps. But no! It is because... It's because my favorite unit of the year, we're unfortunately going to miss because we're not returning to school until fall. And that unit is musical eras. So today we're going to start with the medieval era. First we will discuss what a musical era is. Then we will learn about some of the things that makes the medieval era different than the other eras. And lastly, I will show you some music and instruments from the medieval era. And now, as they say in the medieval era, hit the intro. And so, we shall begin with... There's no electricity in the medieval era? And so, we begin with the medieval era. Beethoven, you're not part of the medieval era. Oh, what is an era? You want me to define what a musical era is? I think you're right, that's a good place to start. Eras have to do with how we divide time in history, mainly the past. How we decide the beginning and ending of an era has much to do with the technologies, the musical practices, and the ideas that were happening during that period of time. For our purposes, I want you to think of the musical eras as a timeline of music history, starting in the past, leading to the present, where we are now. Each era contains unique music, instruments, and composers. As I said before, we're beginning with the medieval era, or as it's sometimes called, the Middle Ages. This era begins in the year 500 and goes until about the year 1400. It's important to know that we're not talking about North America or the United States. These eras are from something called Western music, which is mainly music from Europe. There are thousands and thousands of years of history before the medieval era, but we're starting here. How come? Well, because this is the first era of music that we're pretty sure we know how the music sounds. How come? Well, the musicians from the medieval era were the very first musicians to write their music on paper, or, how they used to call it, parchment. This is Guido d'Arezzo. He is a very famous musician and theorist from the medieval era. He helped develop many music concepts such as the singing syllables that we use, do, re, mi, fa, sol, and la, except he used ut instead of do. He also helped develop written notation. Written notation is written music. Before he did this, musicians would have to learn by ear. That means listening to someone else perform music and then copying it back. The written music of the medieval era looked fairly different than the written music that we use today. The lines, which we call a staff, was still existent, but the notes were less specific as to how to play the music. There are two main categories of music in the medieval era. The first is sacred music, and the second, secular music. Secular music. Secular music was music that was generally sung outside of the church. Secular music was sung by people called troubadours, who were wandering musicians. These troubadours would play instruments to accompany themselves, and their songs were usually about love or battles. Now let me show you some of the instruments that musicians would use during the medieval era. A lot of them sound and look like instruments that we have today. Recorders and flutes. In the medieval era, recorders and flutes would generally be made of wood. They're not as complicated and didn't have as many mechanisms as a new flute. The lute. The lute is a stringed instrument with a hollow body that's similar to a guitar. The lira, a bowed instrument similar to a violin. And my personal favorite, the sackbut, which is an early version of a trombone. Now take a listen to an example of a troubadour song. This song is called Chanson de Guillaume. This means the Song of William. You will notice that you hear one instrument, the lira, and a singer.
Prêt-vous ouïr de grandes batailles et de forts étours, de l'armée du dressage d'ours, on y prière.
Most of the music in the medieval era was meant to be sung in the church. This church music was called sacred music. Most of the church music never had any instruments. Instead, the music would be sung by a group of singers in the church known as a choir. The singers would sing one single line of music all together. This is called monophony. Many singers, one sound. Take a listen to Hildegard von Binging's music. She was an abbess, that's basically a nun, or a female version of a monk. Now let's go over everything that we learned in this video. The medieval era starts the year 500 and ends with the year 1400. It's the first era of music that we study because the musicians wrote the music on paper so that they could remember it. There are two main kinds of music in the medieval era: secular music to be sung outside of the church, and sacred music to be sung in the church. Many of the instruments from the medieval era are the beginnings of the instruments that we use today. And monophony. It is single line singing sung by multiple people. Thank you for watching this video. Next time, I hope that we can talk about the Renaissance, which is another fantastic era of music. But as for now, I'm going to play my flute.